The air in the suburban day spa smelled faintly of eucalyptus and silent judgment. Sophie Miller sat on a sleek, minimalist charcoal bench, clutching a soggy muslin cloth in one hand, while using her knee to gently rock her 3-year-old, Toby, who was currently attempting to scale a decorative bamboo planter. In her lap, 8-month-old Leo was fast asleep, leaking a warm ribbon of drool onto the front of Sophie's grey jumper, a garment that already boasted a proud crust of dried porridge from 7 o'clock that morning. "Can I help you, love?" Sophie looked up. The receptionist stood behind a high marble counter, immaculate in a crisp white linen tunic. Her blonde hair was pulled into a sleek, impossibly tight knot that looked immune to humidity, gravity, and toddler tantrums. Her eyes swept over Sophie's unbrushed hair, the dark circles under her eyes, and the rogue patch of oatmeal on her chest. The look took half a second, but it carried the weight of a heavy sigh. "I have an appointment for an eyebrow wax," Sophie said softly, feeling a sudden hot flush creep up her neck. "With Sarah." "Right," the receptionist said, tapping a polished fingernail against her iPad. "Sarah is running 5 minutes behind, but, just so you know, we do ask that children remain in the designated stroller zone outside the treatment corridor. We try to maintain a quiet, restorative environment for our spa guests." Toby picked that exact microsecond to pitch a plastic dinosaur across the polished concrete floor, where it clattered loudly against a display of $60 organic face oils. Sophie's face burned. "I'm so sorry. Toby, stop, we're going. It's fine." She scooped up Toby with one arm, adjusted the baby carrier on her chest, and bolted out the glass front doors into the blinding midday glare, her heart hammering against her ribs. She strapped the boys into the pram on the pavement, climbed into the driver's seat of her battered station wagon, and burst into tears. It wasn't about the eyebrow wax. It was the crushing, suffocating realization that the world had 2 distinct categories for women: the glossy, polished professionals who floated through day spas like porcelain dolls, and everyone else, the exhausted, leaking, sleep-deprived mothers relegated to the margins, made to feel like walking public health hazards because they couldn't afford a nanny or a blow-dry. As she drove home through the quiet suburban streets, watching mothers push prams past overgrown nature strips, a quiet, stubborn resolve began to take root beneath her tears. "Why isn't there a place where we don't have to apologize for existing?" she thought. "Why can't there be a salon where you can walk in with spit up on your shirt, a screaming toddler on your hip, and still feel like a human being?" That evening, after the boys were finally asleep and the house had collapsed into a fragile silence, Sophie sat at the kitchen counter with a cold cup of tea and a yellow legal pad. When Liam walked in from his late shift as an electrician, dropping his tool belt by the back door, he found her furiously sketching floor plans. "What are we designing, architect?" Liam asked, kissing the top of her head and stealing a sip of her tea. "Our garage," Sophie said, looking up with eyes wide and bright. "Liam, I'm going to quit my weekend data entry job. I'm going to convert the single garage into a home beauty salon." Liam blinked, leaning against the counter. "A salon? Soph, you haven't worked in professional beauty since before we had the kids. Plus, the garage is currently housing 3 broken lawnmowers, 50 boxes of Christmas decorations, and your dad's old outboard motor." "I know," she said earnestly. "And it's going to be the coziest, safest, most judgment-free zone in this entire suburb. Think about it, Lee. Every mum I know is isolated. They're stuck at home, feeling like failures because their houses are messy and they haven't washed their hair in 4 days. If they want a wax or a facial, they have to pay a fortune, hire a babysitter, and feel like they're disrupting a luxury temple. What if we build a place where mums can bring their kids? Where there's a proper toy corner, a coffee machine that doesn't judge, and zero pressure to look like a model?" Liam looked at her for a long moment, watching the exhaustion that had weighed her down for 2 years lift away, replaced by a spark he hadn't seen since before they were parents. He smiled slowly. "Well, I do happen to know a very good electrician who owes you a few favours." For the next 6 weeks, every spare weekend and evening was consumed by sawdust and paint. Liam insulated the walls, installed a proper basin, and laid down warm, soft wood-look flooring. Sophie painted the walls a soothing sage green and a soft, muted blush. She thrifted a comfortable vintage treatment bed, lined shelves with organic, gentle skincare products, and cordoned off a bright corner with a plush wool rug, a basket of wooden toys, and a low Montessori table. She named it the Velvet Nest. The grand opening on a crisp Tuesday morning in October was signalled by a simple handwritten sign pinned to the notice board at the local park and the window of the chemist. The Velvet Nest. Home beauty and mum sanctuary. Kids welcome. Coffee always brewing. Come as you are. For the first 3 days, Sophie's stomach tied itself in knots as she sat waiting behind her little reception counter. Only a couple of neighbourhood acquaintances dropped by for quick eyebrow cleans. Self-doubt whispered that her idea was too naive, that women wouldn't trust a garage setup over a commercial salon. Then came Friday morning. The front gate clicked open, and a woman stepped onto the timber deck. She looked like a stiff wind might blow her over. She wore oversized sunglasses, tracksuit bottoms stained with baby formula, and carried a capsule car seat with a screaming infant inside. Her hair was tied up with a blue plastic pen. Sophie rushed to the door, swinging it wide open. "Come on in out of the wind, let me take him." The woman, whose name tag at her corporate job used to read Clara Torres, senior legal counsel, burst into ragged tears right there on the welcome mat. "I'm so sorry," Clara choked out, fumbling for a tissue. He screamed the entire way here. I tried to put mascara on, and he headbutted my elbow. I look like a raccoon. My house looks like a bomb shelter, and I haven't slept more than 2 consecutive hours since George was born 4 months ago. "Clara, right?" Sophie asked gently, taking the car seat with practiced ease and settling the wailing baby against her shoulder with a soothing pat. "You are safe here. Put your bags down. The kettle is boiled, and I've got fresh banana bread in the oven." "You don't understand," Clara sobbed, sinking into the plush armchair in the corner. "I'm a lawyer. I used to manage complex corporate mergers. Now I can't even fold a fitted sheet without crying." I felt so pathetic walking down the street. I thought about turning around 3 times. Sophie smiled, her own eyes bright with empathy. She handed Clara a warm mug of chamomile tea. "You are not pathetic. You're postpartum and running on fumes. Now George is happy chewing on this teething ring, and you are going to lie down on my bed, and I am going to give you a 20-minute facial and a scalp massage that will make you forget your own zip code." By the time Clara walked out of the Velvet Nest an hour later, her skin glowing, her shoulders dropped 2 inches, and George fast asleep in the pram, something in the neighbourhood shifted. Within 3 months, the Velvet Nest was no longer just a home salon. It was a thriving ecosystem. Word spread like wildfire through the local mothers groups and school gates. Mums didn't just book appointments for lash tints, waxing, or express facials. They booked double slots so they could stay afterward and talk. The garage evolved organically to meet the needs of its community. Liam built an extended outdoor deck with a shaded pergola where toddlers could build Lego towers and eat rice cakes while their mothers sat nearby. A communal snack basket appeared on the counter, perpetually refilled with donated fruit bars, crackers, and home-baked muffins. Sophie became the unofficial anchor of a circle of women who desperately needed a village. There was Chloe, a bubbly mother of energetic twin boys who hadn't worn matching shoes in months, who found solace in venting about the chaos of toddlerhood without anyone telling her to enjoy these precious years. There was Priya, a graphic designer juggling freelance deadlines while nursing a colicky baby, who found her sanity in Sophie's quiet morning slots. One rainy Tuesday in November, Clara, now a regular who dropped by even when she didn't have an appointment, burst through the door carrying a massive Tupperware bowl of vegetable curry. "Emergency lunch delivery," Clara announced, dropping her keys on the counter. "My mother-in-law is coming to visit tomorrow. My house is covered in dog hair, and I need a brow wax and a swift reality check before I lose my mind." Sophie laughed, wiping her hands on her apron. "Sit down, Clara. Curry first, brows second. Chloe is already out on the deck with the twins. She brought sourdough." As the afternoon rolled on, the salon filled with the warm, chaotic hum of female solidarity. In the corner, 2 toddlers bickered softly over a wooden fire truck before sharing it. On the treatment bed, Priya dozed peacefully while Sophie applied a hydrating mask. On the deck, Clara and Chloe debated the merits of sleep training methods while sharing a pot of tea. Sophie paused, wiping down the counter, and looked around her converted garage. The walls were scuffed with little fingerprints near the floorboards. The air smelled of lavender and toasted bread, and the room echoed with laughter. It wasn't a sterile corporate spa. It was messy, loud, imperfect, and entirely full of heart. The true test of the community came just before Christmas. Sophie had been running herself ragged, trying to accommodate every frantic mother, desperate for a moment of self-care before the holiday madness. On top of the Salon schedule, her eldest son Toby came down with a severe case of croup, keeping her up for 3 nights straight. By Friday afternoon, standing in her kitchen trying to prep wax pots while running a fever, Sophie hit a wall. Her chest felt tight, her head swam, and when she dropped a tray of clean towels on the floor, she slid down the cabinets and began to cry. Not quiet tears, but the heavy gasping sobs of complete burnout. The front door opened. Clients had a standing rule to just let themselves in, and footsteps clicked across the floor. "Sophie?" Clara's voice called out, followed by the patter of little feet. Clara walked into the kitchen, freezing when she saw Sophie on the floor amid a sea of white towels. In an instant, Clara dropped her diaper bag, handed her toddler to Chloe, who had walked in right behind her, and dropped to her knees. "Hey, look at me," Clara said firmly, taking Sophie's shaking hands. "What's going on?" "I can't do it," Sophie whispered, wiping her face. "I have 6 appointments this afternoon. Toby is sick. The wax pot is sputtering. I'm failing. I thought I could build this nice little space, but I'm just drowning." Chloe stepped into the kitchen, her usual bubbly energy instantly shifting into fierce maternal protectiveness. "Right, Operation Village is officially underway. Sophie Miller, you are going to go lie down in your bedroom right now." "I can't. People are coming." "I'm a lawyer," Clara said with a dry, confident smirk. "I can cancel appointments and reschedule people better than anyone. Chloe is a former hospitality manager. She can run the front desk and pour tea. Priya is watching George and Toby upstairs with a cartoon marathon. Go." Before Sophie could protest, Clara and Chloe hauled her to her feet, gently steered her out of the garage, and deposited her directly into her own bed, pulling the duvet up to her chin. For the next 4 hours, Sophie lay in the quiet dimness of her bedroom. Through the floorboards, she could hear the muffled, cheerful hum of the velvet nest, Chloe's bright voice greeting clients, the clink of teacups, the sound of women laughing, organising, and holding down the fort for the woman who spent every other day holding it down for them. They didn't just use her business, they protected it. They were it. 1 year to the day after Sophie first pinned her handwritten flyer to the park notice board, the Velvet Nest hosted its first anniversary garden party. The backyard was a riot of colour. String lights crisscrossed between the lemon tree and the fence, picnic blankets were spread across the lush grass, and a mountain of homemade cupcakes sat on the outdoor table. Around 20 mothers and their little ones filled the yard. Toddlers chased each other through the sprinkler, while the mums sat in a sprawling circle, sipping iced tea and sharing stories without a single glance at a clock. Sophie stood on the back deck, holding a cup of tea, watching the scene unfold. Liam came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Look at all this," Liam murmured softly. "You built this, Soph." "We built this," Sophie corrected, leaning back against him. Clara walked over, holding a sleeping baby in her arms, and grinned up at them. "Hey, boss, just letting you know I officially handed in my resignation letter at the firm this morning. I'm retraining in holistic counselling, and I want to rent out your spare consultation room 2 days a week to run postpartum support circles." Sophie's eyes widened. "Clara, are you serious?" "Dead serious," Clara laughed, squeezing Sophie's hand. "This place saved my sanity, Soph, and I want to make sure every mum who walks through that gate knows they don't have to fake perfection here." Sophie looked out across the lawn. She saw Chloe chasing her twins, Priya laughing with a group of new mothers by the sandpit, and the soft, glowing lights of the converted garage welcoming anyone who needed a moment to breathe. She had set out to build a home business so local mothers would have somewhere to go and relax without needing to be model perfect. But standing there, surrounded by the laughter of children and the fierce, unbreakable loyalty of women who had become her dearest friends, Sophie realised something profound. She hadn't just built a salon. She had built a sanctuary. She had built a village. And as she looked around at the bright, messy, beautiful life they had all created together, she knew her dream had become more than she ever could have imagined.